Welcome to the Selfcare Show with Deidre Sanford. Although holistic and alternative healing methods are becoming more and more mainstream, what method is right for you? How do you find a practitioner once you've chosen to explore an alternative therapy? Each week, Deidre will explore a different modality with practitioners who will explain their modality and the benefits they and their clients have received through their sessions. She and her guests may also offer live readings during the show. Now, your host of the Self-Care Show, Deidre Sanford.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, November the 16th. And yes, this is the Self-Care Show. We shortened it because I can't talk. Happy to have everybody here with us at WLTK-DB Talk Radio. And I am so excited. I know I say that every week, but I genuinely am excited every week about the guests who's coming in to talk with us for the day. Mediumship. We haven't tackled that one yet. And I am very much looking forward to speaking with this week's guest, Stephanie Lynn. You may know her as the guest of Chat with Charlie on Thursday mornings, 9 a.m. right here on WLTK-DB. She's got a bunch of irons in the fire and some amazing guests of her own. But today we're going to turn the tables and kind of put her in the spotlight. I got even more excited about today's show because I don't know who watches New Amsterdam. Anyone? I know that you guys pop in every week, and I have several of you who always send me a good morning message and let me know that you're out there. While you're sending your messages this morning to let me know that you're joining us or that you have joined us, don't forget your StreamYard permissions so I know who you are. Let me know whether or not you watch New Amsterdam, if you're familiar with New Amsterdam. It has become a weekly watch here at our house. Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Oddly, date night is a couple of TV shows. Wednesday nights, we get the whole Chicago series. And if you're not familiar with New Amsterdam, it's comparative to Chicago Med. And every episode, they tackle some topic from what's currently happening in our world. Makes the show incredibly relatable. There's a lot of character development, a lot of growth, a lot of personal timelines. And that's not unusual for a weeknight drama, right? I mean, that's how they keep us all hooked. So last night on New Amsterdam, one of the main characters, Iggy, who is the psychologist on the show, started having, good morning, Diana. Happy Wednesday. So Iggy has these patients who come to see him, and, you know, he's a psychiatrist, so he deals with all kinds of different things with his client patients. This particular patient showed up because he'd been, depressed, anxious, not seeing the future as something that held a lot of opportunity for him. He was stuck. And as we begin to get to know Iggy's patient that day, we learned that his mother passed away. And that's a big part of why his life is feeling so bleak. He had this big gaping hole in his life, and he hadn't been through his own process yet. He's stuck. And all of a sudden, this character shows up, and he's bright and shiny and hopeful, and the future looks interesting and inviting to him. And he says to Iggy, well, I talked to Solomon. He's like, who's Solomon? And then another patient shows up. And Iggy's like, wait, I don't understand. So he goes and he finds Solomon, and Solomon is a janitor at the hospital. And he tells Solomon, dude, you can't be doing this with our patients. This isn't fair to them. It may be helpful for them in the meantime, but what about later? And then after the second patient shows up and is doing so much better after speaking with Solomon, Iggy has Solomon in his office. And Solomon is explaining, he says, I don't know. He said, I just I get these messages and I'm compelled to share them. It's like a flash of light. And I have these messages. And Iggy decides that Solomon is having seizures, or Solomon is having some medical issue that's prompting him to relay this information from seemingly nowhere that he made up with Iggy's patients. And Iggy genuinely has concern for his patients. And now he genuinely has concern for Solomon. And he wants to figure out what Solomon's medical condition is that makes him say these things. Helpful or not, Iggy's very concerned. So he puts him through all this testing. And they're sitting in Iggy's office and they're talking about the test results. CAT scan, EEGs. And all of a sudden, Solomon kind of blanks out and he's kind of staring into space. And he starts with a nickname. He calls Iggy by a nickname. And then he makes this hand gesture. And Iggy gets tears in his eyes. And he says, Solomon, how are you doing this? And he gets up out of his chair and he takes about a step and a half closer to Solomon. And that's it. That's all we see. But the next thing you know, Iggy's saying at the end of the episode that he got Solomon a job working in one of the hospital departments directly with patients so that he can share his gift. Iggy suddenly understands what's happening. He values the information that Solomon is sharing with people that's helping them to heal and helping them to move forward in their lives. And of course, the gift that Solomon has is mediumship. And what I love about New Amsterdam is it always presents both sides of some social issue or something that people puzzle about, and shows a positive outcome. And the positive outcomes that they use on this show are not made for TV positive outcomes. Sure, we're talking about social issues on a huge platform. But we also get to see the process of how they go from one side of the issue to a positive outcome. And that's part of what Stephanie is here to talk with us about today. We're going to talk about mediumship and self-care and how the two work together. Stephanie Lynn from Chat with Charlie at 9 a.m. Thursdays right here at WLTK-DB. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. I can't wait to see your big smile. Yay!
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here just to talk and to bring this other perspective to people about mediumship.
And that's really what we're all about right here at Selfcare is what other information can we share that our listeners might decide could be very helpful for them. It's the whole purpose. So what do you think, Steph? How did you get to be where you are?
Oh my gosh. It feels like, and it's funny. And I was just talking to a friend before the show, because from the outside, like that question, how did we get to be like where we are? And I don't feel like I've arrived anywhere yet. Right. I feel like I'm still stuck in this process of still trying to understand my abilities, still trying to understand things. And it's been a process, and a process more so than understanding my abilities, but understanding myself and my connection with spirit. And so through that self-care that I realized I had to do, through that self-evaluation, really brought me to a point of more understanding with my abilities and trusting within that to serve others.
It's so fun that as we go through this journey and develop, we get the opportunity to heal. And I think that helps us to understand the impact in a positive healing way that we can have when we work with clients.
Absolutely. And, self-care, and we had talked about this a little bit when you had asked me about being on the show. It comes in so many forms. And so many, though, if you're not in this world, in the metaphysical world, in Western medicine culture, they're treating the physical body, and we're not looking past that. We're not treating our whole body, our soul connection. And even when I sat down, I was working on my blog for this week, and I felt like it was really coming in to support being here today. Spirit had me going through and looking up sickness. I'm like, why are we looking up the definition of sickness? And as I was looking that up, I came to something that described soul sickness. And, it made me look at that connection of how many times have we felt good physically? We have no reason that we can see to feel down or be feeling off because physically we're well, but it's that soul sickness. It's that lack of fulfillment for our soul and the lack of self-care for that is really sick.
It's interesting, isn't it? How well, and we talk about this too a lot on this show, our energy body.
Yes.
And blockages in our energy body can be emotional. They can be residual snapshots from events that were uncomfortable for us or that were physically harmful for us.
Absolutely.
And how those blockages that sit in our energy field manifest eventually, or can manifest eventually, in the physical form as dis-ease or physical discomfort.
Right. And there's so many times where we look at these things and we feel like we've moved past them, right? We did the self-work, we did the healing. And and even for me, where I'm like, all right, spirit, you know what? I can do platform work. I can do this. I've moved past this. I'm not afraid. And then it comes back up, and then you're like, oh wait,
Yeah.
all right, I was just kidding. I'm not sure I'm completely ready for that. And so they have this way of bringing back lessons we thought we moved through or healings we thought we completed on just a little bit different plate. It's not presented the same way. And that's when you realize you still have more work to do.
And it makes one wonder, does the work ever complete in this lifetime?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No. I mean, anyone would come across that would say they have mastered this, they have completely healed, they are completely knowledgeable, I would say stay away from them. That's that I don't want to call it arrogance, but we're never done learning. We're never done being a servant to spirit, or they're always going to bring up things that we can still be working on to be our best self.
Well, and for those of us who aren't necessarily as aware of incoming information, the knowings, we just consider them like, oh, well, that was a weird thought. I'm going to move on. And that's okay. We all have our own way of receiving information from our own higher selves. And some of us aren't on the page where we refer to that as my soul said, or my higher self said. And that's fine. But when you get that niggling thought process in the back of your head, it deserves some attention and some questions. And sometimes we still think that, wait, was that an intuitive thought? Was that my soul or my higher self speaking to me? Or was that just anxiety? Was that just something that I have in my own mind? And really, mind versus brain, right? Our higher selves really are that thought process out there.
Absolutely.
And speaking to your point of, I don't think we're ever really done. It's, I think, easily compared to the onion analogy. Right. So when you go to your LCSW or your PsyD for whatever purpose, help with whatever process you're working or not working, and acknowledging that, we get the layers of the onion. And sometimes things get worse before they get better. That's pretty common knowledge on both sides of the spectrum on this aspect.
Absolutely.
In that we start doing emotional work and working on our higher selves and peeling back those layers to get deeper, things get messy. You gotta have that emotional response to it.
I kind of look at it, and people that I work with are, friends. And when we're talking about this healing and how it gets worse before it gets better, it's like, being a kid where you're picking at a scab, and because it is almost something that we think is healed, but it's itching. It's, for some reason, it's festering. And as you start to pick at it, it's all these layers. It's everything that's going on. And it will fester with you if you don't process through it. If you don't take care of the wound, it's going to continue to fester and get worse. But even healing on our body is painful. If you cut yourself, that process of cutting your finger in the kitchen and your finger healing is painful. You're going to bump it. Things are going to irritate it. Our soul and those things are no different.
Trying to get through life with an open wound.
Yes.
Whether we know it's there or not. We're going to
Yes.
keep bumping up against it. And I think it just brings to mind the word trigger.
Oh, absolutely.
Lets us know what we need to look at. And if
Right.
everyone around us, if we're all mirrors for each other.
Right.
And somebody who used to always say to me, yeah, but that person you avoid at the water cooler because they make you uncomfortable. They make you angry. They make you sad. They
Right.
make you draw a blank because you just don't know how to relate to them. That's really the person that you might consider choosing spending more time with.
Absolutely. And I like that you brought up that word trigger, because I think right now in our culture, when people are triggered, it's something that you're immediately supposed to avoid.
Yeah.
We can't talk about this. It triggered me, and people shut down. But just like you said, it's okay to have boundaries, and people need to communicate respectfully, but there's nothing wrong with sitting down with people that trigger you or topics that trigger you and processing through. Because a lot of times what I've found is we're all on that same level. We want to find a solution. We just disagree how to get there.
Right.
But if we're not willing to have those conversations, whether it's with us, something that's triggering us, so we're not moving past it because we just shut down, we're not going to see any forward progress.
Yeah, we do. We tend to avoid those uncomfortable, not even necessarily low vibe, quote unquote,
Right.
bad emotional experiences or responses in our society because there's something to be ashamed of, maybe.
Right.
Emotions, especially in our
Yes.
culture. I mean, the emotions, the capacity for our society to accept emotional
Yeah.
responses from the different sexes in our society is very closed off in so
Yes.
many aspects. Women are considered to be overly emotional.
Yeah.
Men are considered to be not available emotionally in most cases.
Right.
And look, guys, I'm not saying all women, I'm not saying all men. I'm just saying the stereotype in our society
Right.
kind of pigeonholes us that way. Um, it kind of makes me think, as we're talking about unacceptable emotions we avoid when we bump
Right.
up against them in other people. It takes me back to a couple of weeks ago when Lynn was up with us and we were talking about grief.
Yeah.
Grief can be such a lonely place
Mm-hmm.
because not only are we already trapped within ourselves, we
Right.
may not have any resources to help us communicate what grief
Absolutely.
feels like to us. And other
Absolutely.
people, because we don't talk about it, tend to kind of shy away from people who are in the grieving process. And
Yeah.
we really shortchange the griever and ourselves when we
Absolutely.
deny it those opportunities.
And that's one, big approach. And even within in my family dynamic, my husband had lost his father a couple years ago, and that was a really pivotal moment in our children's lives where you have that grief, but we were able to go deeper into it and give some support into that. And that's where I feel like the mediumship helps, because you're coming from that different perspective. And, at the time, my children were young, and they looked at it like they just lost their grandpa. He was just gone. And one analogy I really like to use, and I try to explain this to people because so many people don't feel like there's any continuation after here.
Right.
And so that's where I feel like that grief becomes unbearable, because you just feel like this person no longer exists in any space. And like I told my kids, they have a remote control car and you have batteries in it. That's what makes your remote control car run. If I take the batteries out, the car won't run anymore, but I still have the batteries. And that's kind of how our soul is. You take that soul out of the body, you still have that energy.
Yeah.
The body can't be used anymore, but you still have this energy. It doesn't just dissipate. And so giving people that perspective,
Yeah.
and allowing them to grieve, but just giving them that perspective of, you can't destroy energy. It's still here. Now it's that thought process and changing that perspective of learning to communicate a different way and realizing that they still are involved with our lives. It's just not what you're used to. It's not the remote control car.
I think that's such a great way to be able to provide a different perspective
Right.
for all of us. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
And it really helped them too. And,
yeah.
just that, like, one of my children really still struggles with the loss of his grandfather. And because he feels like you don't have that daily involvement. And I'll
Right.
tell him, we'll have those conversations out loud, or write grandpa a letter, because as you're writing it, grandpa's reading it. He's there. It's just that different thing. And that had been validated with him through other readers that I'm friends with, who,
Mhm.
and he's like, oh, well, I just said that to grandpa. And so being able to give
Yeah.
people that peace, that connection. And I wish I could give pieces of my abilities, that little bit, because I don't feel like it's me. I'm just the copper wire. I'm
Right.
just a conduit. It's all spirit. But I wish I could give a way for other people to be that conduit, so that they could understand that the connection goes on.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I hear what you're saying about you wanting to give that to
Yeah.
other people. And I think what I hear when you say that is help people develop their own
Yes.
ability, their own
Yeah.
style.
Yeah.
And did you not recently teach a beginning
I did.
class?
Yes, I did. And
Yes.
which
I thought so.
was great. But for me, and I think why I feel that way is there is still a tabooness to mediumship. There
Yes.
is still, and I don't like reading for people that I know personally, although some I will, because they're not comfortable going to somebody else. But I don't want to know who you are. I don't want you to think in any way possible I was able to look you up on Facebook, because it's
Right.
so hard to prove authenticity anymore. And it's there because there's so much knowledge out there. And so I think that's one area that has kind of hindered people viewing mediumship with authenticity, is that availability of information. And I love those readings where, like you said, you get that gesture, or that's something that you're not going to find on Google.
Mhm.
That's something you're not going to find on Facebook. And so when spirit's able to bring those through, I feel like it's so much more healing for people,
Yeah.
because they get that connection. You're bringing through the emotion of the person you're communicating with. But it's hard to, until somebody has an experience,
Yeah.
and it's hard for them to, I think, put stock in it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes stock. And I think to your point of not wanting to look up your client, or
Right.
like if you go hunting somebody on Facebook, you're inevitably going to find pictures of
Right.
the person that they might be hoping to speak with, or stories about that person. What concerns me more, and I'm sure you share this, we just haven't gone there,
Yeah.
is the disinformation about what mediumship is, what
Yes.
mediumship isn't, and
Yes.
what it can do or not do.
Absolutely. And you can and this is what I tell people, because of that disinformation. I think in that tabooness still of what mediumship is, I have a Christian based faith.
Mhm.
I have faith, I have spiritualism, maybe not rooted in religion, but I have a belief system. I'm not, I don't identify as Wiccan. I don't, and I think
Mhm.
there are some of these stereotypes of what people like. I'm not out in my yard sacrificing a goat to get information.
Right.
It's not happening. um and I think one thing people think is, I am good at reading body language, but me being able to read your body language doesn't give me the information that your grandma passed away and
Mhm.
that's who's coming through.
Right.
So I think people think what they refer to as those, was it the cold readings, where you're using, their facial expressions to know which way to go. And sure, do some people do that? Yeah, you're going to have frauds. You're going to have people that are trying to be more than what they are in any profession.
Mhm.
You have good professionals in any profession, and
Right.
some you shouldn't hire.
Absolutely.
So, do your research. reach out. You know, I love when people look at me for them to come in and be my clients and they ask me questions. They
Right.
want to know my background. They want to know, because I've put a lot of money into my education. And making sure that I have that information, because just like hiring a bad plumber can flood your house and make you not want a plumber, having a bad medium is going to give you a bad experience.
Exactly. And I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. Anything
Yeah.
you said. I know everybody who's
You're fine.
watching live or who watches on YouTube and later replays can see me just suddenly start laughing, because I was going to say a couple of sentences ago, well, I mean, it's just like a plumber,
Oh,
right?
funny. See,
So we
yeah,
went the same place. But
we
I
did.
mean, seriously, if you're going to use somebody in the trades, for example,
Yes.
or if you're going to use a mechanic, right?
Yeah.
You're going to talk to other people.
Right.
You say, hey, where did you go? What was the problem? What was your experience? We just had a plumber here at the house this week.
Oh,
We
funny.
never used this person before, but we used
Yeah.
them on referral. And I didn't deal with them, but my husband did. And my husband's an electrician.
Yes.
So my husband has, specific
Yeah.
criteria against which he measures other tradespeople. And when I got the feedback from him, I immediately took a picture of the business card of the plumber who'd been here, and I
Right.
posted it on our subdivision Facebook page.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a plumber. That's something everybody's going to need.
Yes.
Everyone understands
Yes.
who they are, what they do, what their expectation may be, right? In the world of
Right.
customer service, what that should be. But what do you think? I mean, I know you said you love when people ask you questions.
Right.
And you're not, the standard person isn't going to call some random friend and be like, so I'm thinking about a mediumship reading. Have you
Right.
ever gone and had one? Because the minute you open your mouth and say that, the perception in our society is, oh my God, really? A medium?
Right. Yeah.
So the only thing that, like you said,
Yeah.
talk to the medium. And there are
Yes.
millions out there.
Yeah.
And read through it. See who resonates. What other
Absolutely. And
questions?
if you, any professional, and you're asking them about themselves within their profession, if they don't want to answer your questions or don't want to say, hey, here's a reference, I recommend you go look somewhere else,
Yeah.
because there's a reason. And that goes for any profession across the board.
Well, and I think in the context of that conversation too, if you're not
Mhm.
comfortable asking additional questions, if you
Yes.
sense you're getting pushback, in other words, trust your own gut, trust your
Absolutely.
own intuition.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, and it is, because like you said, in our society, this isn't something that just comes up. And what I have found a lot of the leeway, and I always tell people, like, well, if you're not comfortable, start with like paranormal. Because once you get on that paranormal topic, that kind of leads into the other
Right.
stuff. And if they're like, oh, I don't believe in paranormal, well, then you know not to keep broaching the subject. That's kind of my feelers.
Right. Well, and then some people you just know.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
that, I don't know. I don't even know a different way to explain this. Maybe you can help make it clearer. When we meet new people.
Yeah.
In everyday life, all of us, we almost immediately or within a very short period of time get a sense for, oh, I'm comfortable with this person.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm not, not so comfortable. And I think you probably bump into it as
Yeah.
much as the rest of us do in
Absolutely.
daily conversation. I know with my customers at work,
Mhm.
there are some people that I just know I can say, oh
Yes.
yeah, well, I'm a radio show host and we talk about this and that.
Absolutely.
And I'm also a psychic medium. I'm also an energy worker. But I
Right.
also know that there are a lot of customers that I'm
Right.
connected to in that moment. I'm like, that's not something I would ever
Yeah.
say.
Yep. And it's, and I have a professional life outside of this too. And there's a lot of people that have no clue. I mean, if what I got going on, because it's just, and it's not on topic with what I'm doing there either.
Right.
And so I do
Right.
understand that discomfort that some people have. But I have seen so much that it just heals people. It heals people.
Look, they think we're hot stuff. I don't know if you can see the comments.
I did. I know. I was like,
Ooh,
oh,
thanks.
yeah.
Super cool.
Right.
I don't, what's funny at my age, I mean, I still want to present in a positive light, no matter where I am and what I'm doing. But I'm just not chasing that whole hot girl thing anymore. It's like,
No,
hey, I'm 56 years old. This is me.
and I'm still using wrinkle cream. I'm still
So
using my LeBry
right.
products. Yeah. At least for a while. I told my husband I'm still trying to look good for him. Still trying.
I think it's funny though, because the reason I wanted to kind of bring it out to light is I know anybody else that's watching us live can see those comments. So I don't want to just
Right.
ignore them, but I think it also speaks to authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in different settings, of course, if you're like Tyler or a celebrity medium
Right.
who has to be on camera, well, then absolutely, we're going to
Yeah.
be coiffed, we're going to be made up,
Yeah.
we want to present. But in our daily lives, we're still just like everybody else.
Oh yeah. Like 2 minutes before the show, I still had my hair up in like a mom bun. I was running around vacuuming and I'm like, oh man, I gotta get in there,
Right.
So yeah. But I do. And you and even when I do my show, and I'm sure the same's with you, we make sure that we look good because it is that authenticity. I always want to come across highly professional, but we're not always in this platform or in this light.
And relatable at the same time.
Yes,
Absolutely. Hey, we're going to take a really quick break. So we're going to pop off to commercial land. You guys refill your coffee mugs, pop a note in there for us in the chat. Let us know that you're here listening, and certainly ask us any questions that you might have. Steph is here today for you guys. Well, and for me too. I'm sure I'm going to learn some things for you. No question. But we'll be right back after this break.
Certified psychic medium Stephanie Lynn creates an authentic connection between the living and the spirit world. Stephanie knows she is here to help heal, educate, and provide validation that there is more after death, and allows herself to be a conduit and work as a team with spirit to pass on messages from their world to ours. Stephanie Lynn also works as a spiritual life coach to help you achieve, create, and manifest your best self and life. Looking for help communicating with an animal? Searching for a past life regression therapist? Or dealing with a paranormal experience? Stephanie Lynn is here to help. For a list of full services, visit her on Facebook under Stephanie Lynn Spirit Sensitive. That's Stephanie Lynn Spirit Sensitive. Ellie Weisensel's psychic medium is a medical intuitive that specializes as a body code practitioner. As an energy healer, Ellie offers additional services that allow her modalities to be intertwined with energetic healing. Within your subconscious lies information that knows everything about you and why you deal with specific conditions. The subconscious can be considered the blueprint to your entire body. With Ellie working physically with your subconscious mind, we detect what negative emotions are trapped and where they are stored within the body that is causing you your emotional and physical pain. This work is designed to remove imbalances and correct them energetically, getting to the root cause of why you have your condition, to help balance your body so it may heal itself. Your body is infinitely wise and wants to be in balance. The body code is not only gentle for humans, but it is also a gentle process to help animals. For more information, contact Ellie Weisensel at the website below.
And we are back. Thank you for hanging out with us this morning. My guest Stephanie Lynn is with us today, and you are watching the Self-Care Show at WLTK-DB. Welcome back, Steph.
Thank you. I'm just having so much fun talking about this, and I hope that this brings a resource to your viewers too, and helps them understand how mediumship can help them heal.
Yeah. I think you hit it right on the head. And that's just it. Let's be a resource. Let's provide
Yes.
information. And obviously, if you've tuned into self-care,
Mhm.
especially via the WLTK-DB paranormal platform, you're already pretty open to it. But I
Yes.
love that folks that wouldn't normally tune into a paranormal type show are
Right.
also becoming aware of
Absolutely.
options that are outside
Yeah.
what we consider to be mainstream at this point. And take a little mystery out of these
Mhm.
modalities that are available for everyone. And certainly mediumship is a modality that is available to everyone.
Yes.
I know it helped me tremendously in the past, and I know it's going to continue to help me. Let's take a little bit of the mystery and the fear out of choosing
Absolutely.
to sit down or make that phone call to schedule to sit down with a medium.
Yeah, I think people are like, you hit that nail on the head. They're afraid sometimes. They're afraid, what is that psychic medium going to say to me? And sometimes they're afraid of that information that's going to come through
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. I mean, were they mad at me? Did I do something? Is there
Right.
something unfinished? And really, the whole unfinished package itself is what our grief is all about.
Absolutely.
Unfinished relationship, done,
Yes.
seemingly done, severed tie on this plane. And then also all of the hopes and dreams,
Yes.
those are diminished as well in a
Yes.
new aspect. So what happens, Steph, when somebody calls you, emails you, messages you, and wants to schedule an appointment?
Yeah, so usually I ask them, have they ever had a mediumship
Mhm.
reading, if that's what they're looking for. A lot of times I get clients who have not. And so usually what I recommend for those first-time clients, if they are not specifically coming in with, I need to talk to my grandma, or this is who I'm looking at, I always recommend a blended reading where we start off, with what does their higher self want them to know and some psychic information, and then leave space open to whoever wants to come
Mhm.
in and talk to them. And that's that again, they're facing that fear of, or I'll get that call. They're like, well, I want to make an appointment with you, but I'm afraid of what you're going to tell me.
Yeah.
And I tell those clients, I'm not a fortune teller. I am not here to give you an expiration date. I am not here to say, oh my gosh, next Tuesday you're going to get in a car and this is going to happen. I am here to help you heal. And the information that I get, or the people that come through, are the people that want to relay and help you heal in the areas that you're struggling with. And so I just try to reassure them that the information that they're going to get is going to be reassuring. And like you said, sometimes they are coming in with that fear of, well, we didn't have a great relationship when they were alive, and I'm afraid that they might be upset with me, or I'm afraid what they're going to say to me. And what a lot of people don't realize is, in my perception and in my experiences, they initially might come through with some of that frustration because that's how you remember them here. That's the person you remember here.
Right.
But when we cross over, I feel like we go through some counseling, we go through some debriefing, and we don't really hold on to those trivial things on that side. So they might be coming through and saying, yep, you know what? You did this and you did that, because that's how you identify them. But then
Right.
that's going to change to, but it doesn't matter anymore. Let it go. And so and that's part of that healing too, especially in those difficult relationships, especially a lot of times, like, I'll have clients that want to come in and talk to somebody who may have been on hospice before they passed, and they don't know that the things that they said were actually heard. And so being able to validate some of those things for them makes them feel like they have some finality, or still have that connection with that soul, even though the body's not here anymore.
It can be so healing when you find out, as a client coming in for a mediumship reading,
Yes.
it can be so healing when you find out that the little things that you did
Yes.
for your loved one as they were in their process of transitioning, you brought them a glass of water, maybe you rubbed their
Right.
feet. And it was such a little thing. I mean, that was one of the things I did for my mom. And
Yeah.
I was just drawn to rub her feet, take her slippers off her feet every
Yes.
once in a while and massage those feet. And I learned more about that later. But to have those small gestures
Mhm.
acknowledged
Yeah.
is like, wow,
Right.
you know?
And we don't think about that, and we don't realize. So I really look at my ability to be that conduit as being a counselor for both sides
Mhm.
of the veil,
Yeah.
because we're not necessarily healed when we cross over, and sometimes there's things that people on the other side of the veil want fixed or need to say or get a message across. So it is as equally as healing to them to be able to get some of that information out as it is to us still in the physical.
And maybe we didn't. Yeah. Maybe we didn't take the opportunity to say something
Yeah.
to our loved one. And then we regret that we didn't open our mouths or open our
Right.
hearts really,
Absolutely.
and share that with our loved one before they passed. And then there's the other side of the coin, right? I mean,
Yes.
we're really kind of have been talking about people that we want to hear from, that we
Mhm.
want to talk to, we have messages for and need messages from. What about those people that
Mhm.
we don't want to hear from?
Right.
We as the living person feel as though we've gotten our closure. I don't want to hear from that person. I got no use for it.
Right.
How do we how do we approach scheduling a reading with a medium knowing that someone that we're okay?
And so what I yeah, and I like to tell people, you can say, Steph, I would really like you to bring in my mom. And I'd say 99% of the time, I can get mom to come in
Mhm.
and we have a conversation. But sometimes, and like I tell people, I don't like control it. I don't have like where I'm like, all right, this is the only person. For me, when I am connecting with my communicator, I feel like I have like a physical room, and that room is full of people that are there to support you and want to talk to you. Now, just because you want to talk to your mom, or just because you might be looking for one specific question to be answered psychically, doesn't mean that's what spirit's going to give you, because they're going to look at where you are now
Yep.
and what you need to hear, who you need to hear from, and what message you need to receive. And I've had people, especially people that are victims of abuse,
Mhm.
people that are victims of other crimes, where maybe that person who victimized them is coming through. And so I'll ask people, say, well, do you want to hear everything that comes through? And almost all the time they say yes. And I tell them, if something comes up, especially when, not so much with my one-on-one clients, but especially when I'm at venues, I will tell them, if something comes up that you are not comfortable discussing, because that's so much more open, it's
Yeah.
not very private.
Yeah.
I said, let me know. We will try to move past it. I can't guarantee that they will move past it. Or if somebody comes through who you don't want to talk to, I will relay the message, and then I will ask them to step aside.
Mhm.
I can't control what they do, but I have had, people who have victimized others to come in and want to apologize, to come in and try to explain why they, not that they're trying to make right that they did it, but
Right.
explain where they were when they were here in the physical. And that can be so hard for people, because there's people who are like, if my dad comes through, I am not talking to him. And I'm like, all right, well, guess what? Dad's here. you know? And so I will try, I'll say, can I give you the message so that it's heard? We don't have to go any further, and then I will ask him to step aside. So that's
Yeah.
usually how I approach it.
It's tough. I talked on the show before about I have a history of abuse and similar things that would pop up. And part of the healing for those of us who have been on the receiving end
Yes.
of not so happy events, I think for some of us, sometimes it's the apology we never got,
Yes.
but it's also the apology that we're not sure we want to hear,
Right.
because there is,
Absolutely.
depending on where you are in your process, there is a time when, no, I don't want to hear the excuse. I don't want to hear the apology
Right.
because I'm still working on my own stuff.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
But to know that there is a potential that that person that, you know, that we don't want to hear from,
Right.
could pop in a reading. I think it's great to understand that that doesn't necessarily have to be the focus of the time that your client is
Correct.
able to spend with you as a reader. Um, might not want to knock on the mediumship door and say, "Hey, I'd like a mediumship reading," because we
Right.
have that little concern or that fear that somebody who may still strike terror in our hearts simply by showing up or having their name said
Right.
can really prevent that door from being opened. But I
And
love the way that you express how you
yeah,
talk about the way you would handle a situation like that.
and I have found spirit knows our boundaries. Spirit knows where we are at with our healing. And so, yeah, they might be ready to start edging that person in, but I have not ever sat down where, I've had somebody who has said, well, I don't want to talk to this person. And then I'll say, well, I think this person is here. And then they'll just say, well, fine, just tell me what they want, and then have them go away.
Yeah.
So spirit knows too where we're at. I don't feel like they respect some of those boundaries too. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. They might not have respected those boundaries very well in life in some ways,
Correct.
but there is healing on the other side. Um, and growth, further growth
Yes,
and development, which is really
absolutely.
amazing and wonderful to think about.
It is.
We talked stuff about the class, your beginner's
Yes.
mediumship development
Mhm.
class. What else have you got going on?
I don't even know anymore. It just kind of it sounds horrible, but it seems
Hmm.
so whimsical right now. I don't necessarily feel like spirits putting me in any lane, because I feel like they're
Mhm.
kind of jumping me all over the place. I do offer, some classes, a beginner's class. I have an intermediate class that I teach. I
Oh,
have some
sweet.
people that are asking, that's okay, that are asking me to, do some other classes. I'm working on, I'm actually in a mentorship right now with Maria
Mhm.
Celeste that's coming to an
Oh,
end, which,
nice.
yeah, and it has been getting other people's perspectives and learning different techniques has been so eye-opening to me also. I've dabbled a little. I've had the opportunity to work with Barnaby, who is the host of Monday Morning Monsters, on some investigations with fellow psychic mediums Ellie Weisensell and
Mhm.
Ann Zeschel and his team. And the CAPS team, they are fantastic. So there's been some avenues working within the paranormal. So it's really what spirit puts in front of me, I'm game to try. I just don't know where they're taking me.
Careful. You don't know what door they're going to open next.
Right, right.
Well, I'm gonna check in later. Whatever spirit puts in front of me, I'm gonna try. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. I know,
Just like pull
it
you through
reminds me of college, but a total different concept.
well, and that's part of it too, and as you work to develop as a medium, as a psychic,
Yes.
being open. Ugh, we're
Oh,
hot.
we're hot
They
again.
keep only spelling it with one T.
You
At least
know,
spell it with two T's, please. Get it right.
it always, I don't mind trolling because that just means we're cool enough to troll, but
Right?
the poor grammar does kind of grate
Yeah,
on my soul. But
yeah, I know. Now I have no idea what I was talking about. Oh, the different opportunities
yes.
and the different avenues of using.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say skill. I don't know why, but the skill, and I think it's just because it is something that we develop.
it
Some of us
is.
know at very, very young ages that
Yes.
we're able to see, hear, and or
Mhm.
speak with spirit. Some of us don't know what to do with that. For me,
Right.
it became a childhood fear. I
Yes.
was being watched, and I
Oh, yeah.
couldn't go from one end of the house to the other without like peeking around the corner and then running down the hall
Oh,
and
I
covering up
know.
myself with blankets. Right?
Yeah, I was the same way. My mom's house was built in 1850.
Oh,
Yes, and I'm from the west, or from the East Coast. And so I remember I hated the hallway, because at the end of the hallway was her bedroom. And when the lights were off, I mean, I would run with my eyes closed. And I remember my dad asking me about it, and I told him, I'm like, and I saw like bodies. Like there had been
oh,
an accident, and it was like a hospital, but there was like, it was not good. And I remember my dad, because the light was on, because I had turned it on. I'd run down the hallway and turned it on to run back to the bathroom. And he says, come in here. You need to come in here. And so I remember going in there and he's like, look, there's nothing here. And he shuts off the lights and he's like, see, there's nothing to be afraid of. And I'm just like, like got my hands over my face and I'm in tears and I'm like, how do you not see this?
Right.
And so I totally, I relate 1,000%.
It's definitely a journey.
Yes.
We hear things, we see things, we smell things, we feel things. But when we have the opportunity for education, because things we don't understand are always scary to us.
Yes.
That opportunity for education and a little bit of experience is always a breath of fresh air, I think, and a little bit of a release.
Absolutely.
So when we have the opportunity to sit with someone like you who can help us connect with those who have crossed over, those who are no longer with us on this plane, and deliver those messages. Maybe sometimes what we also hear is confirmation. We're not just remembering the things that they said to us, especially like with parents and grandparents, things they said to us verbally in our lives as we grew and developed, and they were available immediately, but we may hear them again.
Yes.
And that's just another one of the details that mediums can bring through for us to confirm that, we're not losing our minds. We really are hearing these things from the other side. Things that they've always told us throughout our lives. We think we're just repeating them in their head. And in part, that's a reminder. We're remembering what they had said. But when some complete stranger can pull that same statement out of thin air and say, oh, here's your statement. The light bulbs go off and the ice around our heart or part of our grieving process starts to slip away.
It
what
does.
A fabulous thing.
It is. And I looked at it, as a child and having those experiences, to me, it was a curse. I didn't want anything to do with any of this. But now seeing that healing, seeing how it positively can change people's lives, their perception, I'm so grateful that, I came across Diet. She was one of my teachers, and that led into other teachers and development. And I'm so grateful for this community now, and especially this platform and hosts like you, because where do people like us? We didn't have anywhere to go. So now having this community, being that platform, being that resource is such a huge honor.
It really is. And it's something that I know you take on. I think Sylvia Brown, maybe it was the one who used to call it it was someone else, call it a mantle. It's like a responsibility that we carry. And it's not just a responsibility because that feels so heavy. It is an honor. And I know it's vitally important to Diet and to you as you work with your students, as you work with your clients, to stay in that space and to preach staying in that space and come from that space of integrity.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
authenticity. I think it's so important because, man, when you step outside of that integrity, not only that energy comes right back at you. You're creating havoc for yourself, and you're potentially causing larger issues for other people.
Well, and that's why I say, to people who are unsure, to people who are sitting here going, I'd really like to heal, or I'd really like to know, why this happened or how this person's doing, if they're still around. Do your research just like you would for any other profession, because it really takes one bad experience with any profession for you to completely turn away. So just do your research, and there's times where I'll tell people, and I know, and in class, they say you can read for anybody, you can connect for anybody. But there are times where I've sat down with clients where it just didn't feel right to me. And I'm like, can we reschedule, or let me refer you to somebody, because I don't know that I'm the right person. And I do not view you anybody as my competition, because I believe we are all meant to find the right people, and we're here for specific people. And so I have no issue with going, you know what? This doesn't feel right. Maybe you should reach out to Deidre. Maybe you should reach out to Ellie, and giving people these other avenues that I feel would benefit them more. And if they come back, great. But I just want them to find what they need.
Yeah. And again, the essence of integrity and authenticity
Yes.
is right there. It's kind of like, I don't know, a guitar teacher or a nail technician.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm sticking with the women on this one. A nail technician, hairstylist, your doctor. Not every doctor
Right.
is the right doctor for every patient.
Absolutely.
And not every patient is the right patient for every doctor either. So
Yeah.
as we go through life in so many different ways and in contexts, we pick and choose very carefully with whom we choose to align.
Yeah.
And you
I
just gotta
love that.
follow your gut when you're walking through that process. Anything additional that you might like to share today? Wow, I just turned the tables on you big time, because I know you do that with your guests too.
I
Sorry.
do. It's so different being a guest,
Sorry.
because I got to be prepared for these questions, and I'm not. No, I think be open. Like you said, trust your own intuition. If you are feeling called to get a reading or called to look into anything within these modalities, trust that, and trust how you feel. And just, support the station. Keep reaching out. There's so many great resources here for everybody. And so I just hope people will continue to trust and know that everybody here that is on this platform with WLTK-DB, we're really here to be that resource and to bring you that information.
That's awesome. Steph, outside of the WLTK-DB platform, how do people reach you?
Facebook. So oh my goodness. Now, so I have lots of different emails, but you can find me on Facebook under Stephanie Lynn. You can find me under Chat with Charlie, which is the show that I host here. You can email me at chatwcharlie@gmail.com, or you can also email me at Stephanie Lynn Spirit Sensitive @gmail.com. And either one will get you to where you need to be. You can book on either Facebook page. Spirit called me to kind of separate the two at one point. And I was a little confused by why they wanted to do that, which I'm starting to understand now, because some people just see you as a host when you're hosting, and they don't realize the other things. And so you can find me on either one. Both will get you to where you want to be.
Chat with Charlie, Thursday mornings, 9 a.m., if nothing else, right?
Yes. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me and sharing your viewers with me. It was so much fun.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. I had a great time listening to you and talking with you today, Stephanie. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Thanks. And everybody else, stick around. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us one more time here at Self Talk on WLTK-DB. Stick around, because later this afternoon at 3:00, we've got Kelly Brickle with the Psychic Hour. Coming up right behind her at 6 is Kelly Eckhart and Cheryl Murphy. It's Seeing Beyond, and then Over the Target with Missy and Nicole at 8 p.m. Everybody have a fantastic week. We will see you next week right here at the Self-Care Show on WLTK-DB.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.